Greetings, it's Thea again. So if you've come to this next video, that means I must be talking about something you might have interest in. So I just said I would tell some of my story, and I'd like to start that by going all the way back to what I remember. I was a 13-year-old girl who really thought that there was nothing to follow what I had already done. So one of the significant transits that happens is between 13, 15, sometimes it's later. As I look back on that time in my life, I also had some other major transits that were happening in my chart to personal planets of mine and my unique design. And I can cover some of that later. I want to stay with the story. So I was 13 years old. It was a Saturday afternoon and the house was empty. My parents were gone, my sisters were gone. And I just felt like there wasn't going to be anything better than it was right now. And I felt that way. So to give you a little background on that, we lived in a small little community, and I went to K through 8th grade school there. And the early years of my life there were riddled with bullying, not just by other students, but by teachers. I had kind of an interesting combination. I was an overweight child from birth, pretty much. So I was struggling with my weight, and I was probably smarter than was for my own good. I was a precocious child, young. My mother said I was born going on 30. And I look back on that now and I think, wow, 30, that's a very significant time in the astrological planetary influences. So I'd already gotten to my first Saturn return by the time I arrived here. And more truth in that probably than I imagined. However, so here was this child, and I was doing my best to stay into being a good student and participating with the friends and all of that, but I was pretty isolated. I spent a lot of time indoors, cooking, cleaning, being an adult, little adult. So about the time I got to the 6th grade, I was pretty heavy. I had had 2 teachers by then who really, I think, bullied me. I think that they felt intimidated by questions that I asked or whatever, but my 6th grade teacher actually said, you'd be easier to walk over than around. Who says that to an 11-year-old kid? Who does that? Anyway, so in the summer of 6th grade for me, my mother took me to the doctor, and the doctor decided that I should go on amphetamines. That would help me lose some weight because I was struggling in life for being bullied as an overweight child. It bothered me a lot. And so they put me on amphetamines for the summer. I lost a chunk of weight. I went back to the 7th and 8th grade, just the belle of the ball for me. My academics just soared. They soared including that I graduated from 8th grade as the valedictorian. I became popular, or at least I thought so, and I was recognized for my academics. I graduated from 8th grade, not only the valedictorian, I had to make a speech and got to get dressed up. I got 4 of the 6 awards that they gave away that evening. And I had to memorize my speech and stand up in front of everybody. It was really a wonderful thing. I was a star, and it was all over. It was done. I graduated. I went back and spent the summer at home, and I felt that was the best it could be. It wasn't going to get any better than that. So one Saturday afternoon, I wrote a letter to my family, I got into my dad's gun safe. I loaded a gun, and I knew that this was the best it would ever be. That's pretty sad for a 13-year-old girl, especially somebody who just felt like she had reached stardom. But I just knew it couldn't be any better. I was a big fish in a little pond there, and I was going to be transferring to the big high school down the road in another town. And I would just be a little fish, a very, very little fish in a big pond. And that was just more than I thought I could deal with. It was scary. And so this was the choice I made. Now, I can't tell you exactly what might have stopped that process, but I do know that I got very scared. And I don't know, the more I've learned about how the dogs in my life have been supportive of me and helpful, the dog was probably the only being in that house with me that day. Everybody else was gone. And maybe I just couldn't leave him. I don't know. Whatever. I got scared, and I panicked, and I went, oh my God, I can't do this. I mean, I was raised in a good, strong Christian home of, and it would be a sin, it was be a sin. And then what would that mean? What would happen? And I just couldn't do this. So I had to unload that gun, and I had to put it back, and I took that letter and I tore it up in little pieces, and I took it out in the back where we had a burn barrel, and I made sure every single little piece of it was destroyed. And I went on about the afternoon, and when my family came home, I never mentioned it. In fact, for some people who might have known me then, this might be the very first time they're hearing about it. And I went on. I went on to be a freshman in that big school, and I met new friends. I met wonderful people. I became very social. I fit in as best I could. And by the time I was a senior, I was the first general manager of the student store that we built. And I had a group of friends that were close and fun and had a great time. And I graduated the top 10% of that class. And, I went on to go to college. And so there's always that feeling. The thing that comes to mind to me about that 13-year-old girl is that she says, this is all there's going to be. This is all there is. And I think that that's the least truth that we can own, that this is all there is. Because for me, that's a perspective of that moment. And for me to apply that for the rest of my life is not much service to me. It was like I was self-bullying at that point. So I think about young people anywhere from age 13 to 15 or 16 who struggle with an automatic, it's in astrological terms, a half Saturn cycle. And if you have personal planets that ride very close to that, like I did, it gets very personal and very intense. And I think the best thing about learning astrology and knowing that about one's own personal design is you can be ready for it. You can see it coming. Again, I'm sure I've said this, but what's best, I think the best thing that astrology offers is this shall pass too. It's a science that proves it, and it'll give you a date. Now, I had to go back and track all that because I didn't know astrology when I was 13. I wish I did, and I'd love to teach it to all the children. I'd like to bring this long historic science back to the surface and help us both psychologically, spiritually, and with science so that we can help each other. So I had to look back at that, and I know that something saved my life, whether it was that dog or what, but I did feel better. I got past that planetary influence, and things got much better. So that's part of my personal story, just a piece of it. And I think I'm going to break these down based on some age brackets or what I call significant age cycles. So thank you for joining me. I'm grateful to be here and talk to you. Many blessings.